All right, hey there everyone, Dr. Beth Westie here. This is going to be part 2, the second video in the fertility series. We're going to be going through the 4 different weeks of the month, talking about your hormones, your cycle, how to regulate your hormones, and really help overall with fertility. So this is the second part to it, and we're going to be focused on ovulation, getting to that ovulation point right now. So the first video, if you missed it, go back and watch it, but we're going to be talking about, and I'm just going to dive right in here to some of the specific information. Remember, if you're looking for more specific info on how to eat for your hormones in your cycle, I have that in my book, The Female Fat Solution, which is on Amazon. And if you're looking for specifics on that, you can always check out my YouTube, subscribe to YouTube. I also have a podcast series on this, the Female Health Solution podcast, where I detail things out as well. And then again, to really help your hormones regulate, we're going to be looking at utilizing not only eating for your hormones in your cycle, seed cycling, but tinctures and herbs for your cycle. We're still focused on using the estro balance during days 1 through 14. So that's the second week here, focused on production and maintenance of estrogen at the right level in your body. And again, I'm really focused on in this series a more regular cycle. This is not estrogen dominance things or having your cycle be longer or shorter. That's going to be a different series, so stay tuned for that. Again, subscribe so you can stay updated on all those things coming out. But we're going to be utilizing this, and just before we switch over into the progesterone phase, which we would switch over to the tinctures as well. So I've got info below this video where you can get your tinctures sent right to you and utilize some of these other tactics I'm talking about in this video. Okay. So week 2, we are working towards ovulation. We're not at the ovulation point just yet. We are working towards there. But what happens here after week 1, estrogen really starts to rise. And estrogen does a lot of really important things in the body, especially hormonally. It really helps the follicle to develop and release that egg. You know, it's going to help produce that cervical mucus. So if you're like, man, I'm not really producing cervical mucus, how am I supposed to tell, blah, 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 then you're probably not having the right amount of estrogen in your system if you're not producing cervical mucus. And cervical mucus, besides tracking basal body temperature, cervical mucus is one of the things that we also track and look at to make sure your hormones are regulating. So that's really, really, really important here. We are also looking at the endometrial proliferation, meaning that endometrial tissue is getting a lot of blood stored in it and starting to grow. That's estrogen does drive that. So it's really important that you have estrogen for the endometrial tissue maintenance production of that at the right level. Again, not too much, but not too little. It's like the 3 bears. Not too much, not too little, just right. That's what we want for endometrial tissue. And that is maintained and produced by estrogen. Again, this is the main time here, week 2 for estrogen. The other thing that's going to be happening is your basal body temperature is lower still. It drops when you start your period, and we still want it to be lower this entire time, right up until just before we ovulate. Just before we ovulate, then we want that basal body temperature to drop even more, to dip and then spike. That means that we would have actually ovulated. That dip then spike means that our body would have had this shift and change in hormone, LH, FSH, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. It drops and then spikes. That tells us that those hormones were released and that ovulation did occur. The follicle released that egg. Boom, there we go. Yes. Now, if we're looking at optimal fertility things, I will talk about that more in the next video on week 3 when we talk about implantation and things like that. But we do not want that basal body temperature to increase or rise or spike at all until after that ovulation, really until like day 15. If it happens too early, our cycle is going to be off. If it happens too late, our ovulation is off. So really, really, really keep that in mind. This is very, very, very important. The other thing that we want to look at again with this is that still maintaining that yin energy. After ovulation, it does transfer over into that yang energy after that. But again, we're still maintaining through this whole week. Now, also with this yin, we want to keep the energy uplifted. Before, we were, focused on having the energy move down that conception vessel and everything. And now we want to rebuild and start that endometrial tissue lining. So it's not as focused down, right? We're preparing to ovulate. We're preparing to support that for our system. So we want to help support our body overall and keeping the energy sort of midsection, right? Uterus, ovaries. We want to trigger the ovaries. So a lot of times rubbing your abdomen, doing dry brushing, things like that can really help. The other thing you want to make sure you maintain is your gut health, prevent liver stagnation, so keep your gut moving, keep your abdomen happy, don't get bloated. So along with dry brushing, sometimes Epsom salt baths can help, abdominal massage can help, and keep that lymph moving as well. So those are really helpful little easy things you can do on a regular basis. Besides the nutrition, the herbs, the seed cycling, the physical work on your body can really help. And again, when I'm doing acupuncture on somebody for fertility, there are specific points that we target. But again, we're really trying to trigger the ovaries to get going. We're working towards that point. But again, still in this week, we are really focused on the estrogen being elevated to have that process happen with the endometrial lining, because that's so important for implantation. We'll talk about that in the next video. So that's what I got for you today. Part 2 of the fertility series. Next video is going to be talking more about post-ovulation, what happens in the body, what we're focused on, and let me know if you have any questions. Remember, go below this video if you have, if you want to check out more information, or if you have questions on hormone testing or what to do for you specifically. If you don't follow a normal pattern, don't hesitate to reach out to me and send me an email.